Are we ready? All right. Now, one note, I'm going to flip the page. We're going to start on page 28. I'm going to finish up. I want to tell you that in the 4th edition, at the bottom of that page where he's just described the vital spiritual experience and what it is and how we get at it and what I just described to you, they have a little asterisk now. And that little asterisk sends you to the back of the big book to read something called the spiritual experience. And it says in there, you'll often read about a spiritual awakening and a spiritual experience. As I've told you, the only place the spiritual awakening appears is in the 12th step because they changed it in later editions. It was not in the first edition that way. That spiritual experience, drawing that new idea of what a spiritual awakening is, it all came later. Interesting, they put it right in the spot where Bill delivers the answer to alcoholism. Just a little side note, may be interesting to you. Top page 28. Here was a terrible dilemma which our friend found himself when he had an extraordinary experience which we have already told you made him a free man. He went back, the Oxford group got lit up like a Christmas tree. We, in our turn, sought the same escape. I want what he has, with the desperation of a drowning man. The man who is ready to recover will be desperate. He will want it. You won't have to drag him. You won't have to prod him. You won't have to do anything. Part of the problem with raising the bottom is now you can go to 13 different treatment centers. You can live in 17 different halfway houses. You can go to all kinds of meetings. You can pick and choose like there's a big cafeteria of ways that you recover. It's great as long as you're not a real alcoholic. There's only one spiritual solution. And we know his name. All right. What seemed to be at first a flimsy reed has proven to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you will, a design for living. Notice how that's in quotes. That's another Oxford group term. They said, we've got religion for encountering Jesus Christ, and they called the design for living a way of life. And it's over on the other side of the page. It'll explain it. I'm not going to take the time. You can do that. Remember, all that stuff on the right is to explain the stuff on the left. And I'm only touching on parts of it. The distinguished American psychologist William James, I told you about his book earlier, The Variety of Religious Experiences indicates the multitude of ways, there are 3 ways, in which a man can discover God. We talked about them. Lit on fire, study, being in contact with people who've had one of the first 2. That's the synopsis. You can read it if you like. It's dry. We have no desire to convince anyone that there's only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, here it comes. It means that all of us, whatever race, creed, or color, are children of the living Creator, with whom we may form relationship upon a simple understanding terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Those having religious affiliations, Catholics, Protestants, whatever you are, will find nothing disturbing in our beliefs, oh, look at that, or ceremonies. We have ceremonies. Sound like a church. There is no friction among us over such matters. Now, here's where it talks about the church directly. So here he's telling us that we're living in relationship with the Creator. He's told us the Creator's entered into our heart. He's told us that that's the vital experience. And then it says, we think it no concern what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals. They're talking about church in the big book. This should be entirely a personal affair which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies. Look at the next sentence, the finish of the sentence, after the comma. But most of us favor such memberships. Is that true today? Come on now. Well, this paragraph gets read at Recovery Church in San Jose. It's one of the paragraphs that Matt included in our opening. We read it every week. We explain what a fellowship is. We explain what the body of the church is. We explain to new people when they're coming in to learn more what we're all about. You see, the answer, the people in the other room know more about than me. They're studying every day. They're in service every single day. We're kind of like kindergarten. We just kind of point our way back to them. But not everybody goes back to a church, and that's okay too. I was 13 years sober, walking with Christ before I would walk into a church. Talk about pride, huh? A lot of pride. A lot of pride. Prideful, prideful, prideful. All right. Where am I, Scotty? In the following chapters, there appears an explanation of alcoholism. Ooh, we're getting into more about alcoholism as we understand it. Then a chapter that addresses the agnostic. Oh, you're going to love that one. Many were once in this class are now among our members. So are they still agnostic? No. It says were in this class. Surprisingly, and before I move on, the design for living was to share our sins and temptations, restitution for our wrongs, surrender our lives, past, present, and future, listen for guidance. That was the Oxford Group's design for living. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to the spiritual experience. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. So he's still kind of just telling the story at 30,000 feet. It's going to get very specific. Those are followed by more than a score, that's 100, or that's a score is 25, personal stories or experiences. Now, look what it says here about the personal stories. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language, from his own point of view, the way he established his relationship with God. They were testimonies. That's not what they are anymore. The news stories and what they say about the news stories is to tell you a little bit about our fellowship. These stories were a witness. 75% of them talked about picking up their Bibles and going back to church. They talked about their relationship with Christ. They talked about the Father. Gone. Well, you can still get them. You can go get them for free at fatbook.org. Download them. And so there was a book that had these directions, and then in the back it had the witness. So when you read the witness, you kind of understood who the God was. If you take away the witness and you're reading through this, it's a little opaque purposefully. You don't have the witness, how hard is it to figure it out? It's real hard. I suggest you take a look at some of those stories and develop your own story on how you developed your relationship with God. So when you work with another, that's what you're going to need to do. These give a good cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what actually happened. This isn't a fiction book in their lives. We hope no one will consider these revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see those pages and will believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I am one of them. I must have this thing. Your story needs to be how you were made free. You need to know your witness, and that's what they did. All right, turn in the page. Page 30, top paragraph. More about alcoholism. I call this the insanity chapter. Bill just gave us the solution. He gave us the answer. Now he's going to do in his style, he's going to beat it home. He's going back to the problem. So bear with me. We're going to go back and we're going to pound on the problem. It's the way Bill writes. You'll notice in every chapter, you get problem, then solution. Sometimes you get solution, then problem. Bill keeps going back and forth.
Do you want to stop the clock and start it immediately?
No, I think we're good. What time is it? How long did I talk?
10:33, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, no, we'll keep going. All right. He was talking about a cut for the tape. Most of us have been unwilling to admit that we were real alcoholics, what he just described. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Nothing wrong with me. I'm as good as you. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, we'll control our liquor or control our drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. There it is. Boil it all down. That's what we become obsessed with. controlling it and enjoying it. That in turn becomes a compulsion. Our morality gets torn down. We're speaking lies over our life. We become these people that are nothing like who God made us to be. And we wonder why we can't hear from him. The persistence of this illusion. So it is an illusion that you're going to drink. That's like a mirage. It ain't going to happen. Is astonishing. Many pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves, that's your spiritual self, that we were alcoholic. Were, past tense. This is the first step in recovery. It's the beginning of the process. The delusion, that's a great word. It is the belief in an illusion that we are like other people or presently may be, must be smashed. The thinking is delusional to think that we're just going to learn our way through this. Not if you're a real alcoholic. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. Maybe a moderate drinker can. Maybe even a heavy drinker. We see them. I've seen them in the rooms. They're in the rooms for 5 or 10 years. They go off, they drink, and they never come back, and they're drinking successfully. They didn't have what I had. I see it. I've been around long enough. But the real alcoholic can't do that. He may die and never come back. All of us felt that at times that we were regaining control. But in such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control. It gets worse, which in time led to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Bad stuff starts happening. We are convinced to a man that the alcoholic of this type, the real alcoholic, is in the grip of a progressive illness. And I put a box around the word grip. If you look in the note number 4, here's what it says in the book of Corinthians about the grip. I can do anything I want if Christ has not said no. There's no prohibition to alcohol in the Bible. But some things are not good for me. Even if I am allowed to do them, I will refuse to if I think they might get such a grip on me that I cannot easily stop when I want to. I didn't know that. Nobody ever spoke scripture into my life. I didn't know there was a God. I had no idea. But guess what? His laws work regardless of whether we know it or not. They always work. They always work the same. Just because I didn't realize that reaction I was having was getting control over me, I fought with it. I wrestled with it. It says, turn away from it if it gets you in its grip. It's an interesting word which Bill uses, and it's an interesting word which the Apostle Paul used. Over any considerable period of time, we get worse, never better. We are like men who have lost their legs. We don't grow new ones. The body will not change. This is talking about the body. The soul will recover. The spirit is reborn. It's new. It's fresh. The body is the only thing that never changes. So if alcohol comes in it, and you've decided to allow that, it's game on. I got a story, but I don't have time to tell it. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind, the real alcoholic, like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there was brief recovery followed by always still worse relapse. Relapse is when we deteriorate after being improved. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree that there's no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic, the real alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this, but it evidently hasn't done so yet. Like I said before, they got all kinds of medicine they're giving people now that take away the craving. If you don't have the strange mental blank spot, that might work. If you take that medicine and the craving goes away and then you drink again, game on. You don't know if it's ever going to stop. People will experiment with that. I don't know. Anyway, despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics, there it goes, they're telling you the term, the phenomenon of craving, the strange mental blank spot, the obsession, are not going to believe that they are in this class. By every form of self-deception, our narcissism, and experimentation. They will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule. Therefore, non-alcoholic. That's pride. I'm different. I can do it. I've got it. I've got this one. Leave me alone. If anyone who is showing an inability to control his drinking can do a right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. These are the methods that we have tried. Drinking beer only. Limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if we ever got drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing it off forever with and without the solemn oath. Taking more physical, exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms, sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitments to asylums. We could increase the list to an infinitum. We've tried everything. Everything except a vital spiritual experience, and we'll resist that. We do not like to brand any individual as an alcoholic, but he can quickly diagnose himself. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and then stop abruptly. Now, come on. Now, I say this to guys all the time. You want another drink? I'll take you to the bar. I had one guy take me up on it one time. And I went, holy cow. And he took me right next door, and he took me into some CVS pharmacy or something. And we're walking back to the booze thing. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to buy this guy a bottle of booze. And we get back there, and guess what? It's all gone. They're out of booze, whatever the thing is. And he goes, come on, man, there's a liquor store down there. We can go there. I go, oh, you only had one shot. God brought you here. No bottle tonight. Good knowing you. See you later. Right? He saw it as a chance to get a bottle. Now, what they're saying there is, what Bill said is, most people, if they've got this far in the program, you've worked with somebody and you've got this far and they decide to drink again, this is going to burn inside their head. There's nothing worse than a head full of AA and an ear full of AA and a belly full of booze. Right? So if you're walking somebody through this thing, it's heaping on them like hot coals. They may relapse. They may do all kinds of things. That's all good. At some point in time, this stuff is going to take. It's God's timing. It's God's plan. It's that guy's walk, not yours. We're not responsible for the result. We just got to give what we've been given. Where am I, Scotty?
31:3.
31? 32:1. Try it more than once. It won't take long for you to determine if you're honest with yourself about it. It may be worth a bad case of the jitters if you get the full knowledge of your condition. So they're saying go have a drink if you think you can do it. Holy cow. Man, that's a tough experiment, right? Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early on in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking. That's what I said earlier. But the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop when there is still yet time. That is the insanity. I call this the insanity chapter. That right there is the insanity. We're not going to stop if we think we got one more left in us. Boom. We have heard on a few instances where people had showed definite signs of alcoholism, the belief system, where we're able to stop for long periods of time. Long periods of time are not permanent because of an overpowering desire to do so. Here's one. A man was 30, doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous. Now that's restless, irritable, and discontent. That's fearful. In the morning after one of those bouts, he quieted himself with more liquor, a little hair of the dog that bit him. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw he would get nowhere if he drank at all. Once he started, he had no control whatever. The man is a real alcoholic. He made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and had retired, he would not touch another drop. Remember that rule I talked about? We go headlong back into our work. Man sought no spiritual experience. An exceptional man, he remained bone dry for 25 years. Dry drunk, we see them in the rooms all the time. They're miserable. White knuckle, holding on, grumpy. No spiritual answer. And retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. Then he fell the victim to the belief, which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink like other men. These things don't help us when we don't drink. It doesn't change what's going on. And, the disease is like a sleeping tiger inside of us. It's waiting patiently. And if you put, it's hibernating. And if I have a little tiger cub that I put to sleep 34 years ago, I'm living right, I'm connected, but it's still there, and it's hibernating, and it's growing. And when an animal hibernates, it keeps growing, doesn't it? But it starts to get skinny. It gets malnourished. Its claws are growing. Its fangs are growing. And my little tiger's been sleeping for 34 years. If I wake him up, he's going to come out roaring. Claws moving, biting, killing us. See, the longer we stay dry and then drink again without a spiritual solution, the harder it comes back after us. And that's what happens to this man. He puts the tiger to sleep, but it continues inside of him. It continues to evolve. His beliefs don't change. He's not new. He hasn't had a spiritual experience. He had made up his mind that until he had been successful in business, he would not have another drop. An exceptional man, he remained bone dry for 25 years. Then he retired, a happy business career. Then he fell the victim to, blah, 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 here we go. With the belief which practically every alcoholic has, that after a long period of sobriety, had qualified him to drink like other men. Here we go. Out came his carpet slippers and a bottle. In 2 months, he was in the hospital, puzzled and humiliated. Comes back fast. He had tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital in the meantime. Then he gathered all of those forces and attempted to stop altogether. He found that he could not. It never occurred to him that he couldn't. You know, I told you that little story about the doctor and my liver. When he told me that, it never had occurred to me before that I couldn't stop. And then once I had that piece of knowledge about what was going on with my body, man, I know it. I'm not going to do this anymore. It never dawned on me that I couldn't. See, we don't really believe that we can't. We have fooled ourselves. And so this man wakes up and he's like, holy cow, I can't stop. And he wants to. Every means of solving a problem that money could buy was at his disposal. Every attempt had failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead in 4 years. Yee-haw for the sleeping tiger. I had a man, he came down to city team. He was over 30 years sober. He'd gotten drunk again. And it tore him up, and he was in the hospital. We spent some time, and he came to know God, and he died shortly thereafter. That was his journey. 30-some years dry, drink again. By God's grace, he gets to be in his glory now. But that 32 years, what that man could have done, amazing. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. But here is a man who at 55 found he was just where he had left off at 30. We have seen the truth demonstrated over and over again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. The body never changes, like a man who has lost his legs. Those statements, those sayings have nothing to do with the restoration of the mind or the renewed spirit, only the body. Don't put liquor in the body, and we live normally. How do we do that? We stay close. Now here he's going to talk about the strange mental blank spot again. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop, as he did, on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it, but because none of them really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because of this particular mental twist. It's a reference to the strange mental blank spot that happens. Either we don't think about it or we play with the thought. Already acquired. They will find that he can, acquired, will find he can win out. Several of our crowd, men of 35 or less, have been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking for 25. See, if you've got the body, you got the allergy, The obsession will come quick. The spiritual break will come quick. It's not all about how long you drank, how many jails you ended up in, how many treatment centers you've been through. It's do you have those three things? So he's pointing back to the things that we've been studying mostly yesterday. To be gravely, and that's deadly, affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time, nor take in the quantities some of us have. This is particularly true with women. Potential female alcoholics often turn to the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. We who are familiar with the symptoms see a large number of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere. So you all are familiar now with the symptoms. Look for the symptoms. But try to get them to see it. Here's the hard part. Look as we look back, we feel we have gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own willpower. If anyone questions whether he has encountered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for a year. If he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant, that means very little, chance of success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remained sober for a year or more because of some serious drinkers and then becoming serious drinkers again later. So let me extend that now. There were no meetings. There were no treatment centers. You got 3 days in the hospital and back to your own devices. You go into the rooms today and you can hang out there for a long, long time. Not recovered. Making it from one meeting to the next. Living in fear of the next drink. Going from place to place. Seeking the answer that's right in front of you. And here we are, and that's what's going on. Though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. So some people do stop. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolution, and most of them within a few weeks. So we don't really study the big book anymore in a way that we're studying it today. We don't look to the spiritual solution anymore. And so we see this happen all the time where people are, relapsing. And when we say, well, it's part of recovery, it doesn't have to be. It's a free will choice whether you want that to be your story from this day forth or not. It can end right now, right today. Give it all over. Turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you now understand him and seek him with the desperation of a drowning man. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. Here we go. We are assuming, of course, that the reader has a desire to stop. At this point, I say, if you don't, stop reading. Get rid of the book. You're going to get in deep water if you keep going. Here it is. Whether such a person can quit on a non-spiritual basis. And I throw religion in with that. A pew warmer. I'm going to show up on Sunday and be good. I'm not going to read his word. I'm not going to share his word. I'm not going to do things for other people. But I'll be religious. Basis depends upon to the extent which he's already lost his power of choice, whether he will drink or not. Boy, oh boy, is that a mouthful. Modern AA, self, agnostic beliefs, atheism, etc., all of those are non-spiritual. When this book talks about spiritual, in the language of the time, it meant a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what it meant to the Oxford group. That's what it meant to Bill Wilson. That's what it was then. That's what it is today. The history of AA hasn't changed. What Bill and Bob believed didn't change. And he will tell you in multiple writings, you'll find him in the back, where Christ was his answer. He told us on page 11, and as Bill sees it after he leaves the hospital, he tries for 6 months preaching at people, telling them that God is the way out. And he's going up and down, and nobody's getting sober. Bill writes this on page 114 as Bill sees it, and it's in the back of your fat book. I'm going to paraphrase it. He goes back to the doctor, and he says, Doctor, nobody's getting this thing. And he writes in his book, he says, I went for 6 long months, believing so surely that Christ could do anything. I had the unconscious conceit to think he would do it right there and then in the manner that I chose. He goes back to the doctor and he tells him he's having no luck. Silkworth says, tell him about the allergy, Bill. You skip the allergy. Without the allergy of the body, until somebody knows there's no other way out, tell them about it. The strange mental blank spot, the allergy of the body, the obsession of the mind. They've got to understand that. And where does God send Bill next? Akron, Ohio, to sit with a doctor who's a member of the Oxford group and can't stay sober. He tells him about the allergy of the body, and bang, God's plan unfolds. And millions of people since then have recovered from alcoholism. Grace. Grace. But for the grace of God. Amazing story. All right. That was a little bit of a rabbit hole, but it was fun. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter, from outside of ourselves, inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or wish. How then shall we help the reader to determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to the alcoholic who suffers. Yeah, we don't want to send everybody back to the bar. And perhaps to the medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede the relapse into drinking. For obviously, this is the crux of the problem. What sort of thinking, rational mind, dominates the alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks directly into the saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking? He's not. We don't think before we do it. We have the strange mental blank spot. Anybody hear about a guy getting out of a jail and walking right across the street to the bar? Why is there a bar across the street from every jail? Easy pickings. All right. Now, Bill is going to give us 2 stories right now. The first 3. And we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and read those stories.